Ras Iyah V, there has been a lot of talk about the Rastafari Millennium Council in and around this era, the new era of ganja legalization. And I am seeking to understand exactly what that council was, what it is now, what its influence is, and what its proper role might be in this situation. Could you explain to me, tell me when the Rastafari Millennium Council was constituted and what its goals were at the beginning?
Yeah, you thanks for it, and you thanks again, for being here. The RNC came about in 2007 to celebrate the beginning of the Ethiopian millennium. Now in Ethiopia has a different calendar from what we have here in the West. So it's about 7 years and some 8 months to be exact behind the Gregorian calendar. So in 2007 was the beginning of 2000 in Ethiopia. So to herald that at the end of it marks the beginning of the Ethiopian millennium. So to celebrate that, the Rastafari community decided to make a move in trying to unify the movement. But that is not the first time it has been done, it has been tried. In 1987, I set up the EIUC, the Ethiopian International Unification Committee, to enable the Rastafari community to speak with one voice and to act with one voice, nationally and internationally. And I remember we used to publish the paper Rastafari International Union for short, RIN. And then after a time that faded, in 1994, we brought about the RCO, the Rastafari Centralization Organization, because the idea at all time was to centralize the movement. Again, that failed, and for a little time there was a vacuum in terms of efforts trying to unify the movement. As a matter of fact, the brother who was chairperson of RCO died. Now came 2007 and the Rastafari Millennium Council was set up. The basic aim and objective of the RNC was to unify the movement and at the same time to protect what I would be considered as Rastafari intellectual property. Because to a large extent we know our culture was being exploited, it was being misused, and at the same time the Rastafari community was not getting any form of financial benefit from the way in which our culture has been used out there, the red, gold and green in particular, the words, the vocab, of that. So all those we consider to be our intellectual property. Now, at the time when it started, Junior Manning was chairperson, and a brother named Howard Wright was deputy chair, otherwise we called him Hough. Then Junior Manning passed on, and Howard Wright became the chairperson, with an assisting daughter Mitzi Williams, who is also co-chair of the Negril House.
So tell me, who were the members of the Millennium Council?
All right. When it started, you had the Negril House, you had the School of Vision, you had the 12th Tribe of Israel, you have the House of Jed, Rastafari Business and Professional Association, Ethiopian World Federation, the Jedediah Bingi. Those I remember offhand.
And are they all Jamaican houses?
Right, they're all Jamaican houses. So then when Howie died now, Mitzi Williams became the chairperson. All right.
This is approximately when?
About 5 years ago. Maybe about 5 years ago. But anyway, what was noticeable about the RNC at the time is that it had its aim and objective, like I said, was to protect intellectual property and to unify. But with the development of the movement over the years, it had the potential of really unifying the movement and of fulfilling its mandate. How it was structured is that the individuals that represented the houses or the mansions would have the vote. They would be the real decision makers. Now, you had others who came or who were asked to be a part of it, but did not belong to any house or mansion. These individuals did not have any voting rights, right? But they were, for example, a Maxine Stowe was asked to act in the capacity of IP consultant. Greg was asked to act in the capacity of secretary, and so on. But an executive was here. Now, in 2013, Bonuela, even before that, we used to meet at different places. For example, I was not a regular attendant to the RNC because the Nabinga House was represented at these meetings by Dr. Mitzi and one of her brethren named God, because each house and mansion were asked to send 2 representatives at each of the meetings. So, and being in Westmoreland, I wasn't able to go to the meeting as I would have wanted. But everybody knew that, my heart was with, and the fact that Nabinga House being a part of it, that we were in total support of the idea of unifying the movement and trying to protect the intellectual property of the movement.
So what kinds of issues were discussed at the meetings that you know of?
The meeting were, for example, if we were planning an event, if we were, for example, having a march in Kingston, that the individuals in Kingston would take upon their responsibility to communicate with the relevant authorities, the KCC, the police, and so on. Issues, for example, discrimination against Rastafari, whether in school, the issue of immunization, the issue of herbs, and the issue of repatriation and reparation and so on. Issues that would directly be related to the Rastafari concept. One thing also that was of importance was to establish a dialogue with the government. Right. So anyway, come 2013, I remember a set of brethren, including Bonreal and Maxine Stowe, Greg Kremlin, and a few others came to the Pickpoor Nabinga Center, because that is where we are celebrating the coronation of His Imperial Majesty and Haile Selassie for the past.
And that's at the Nabinga House.
Right, that's Nabinga Center in Montego Bay. So they came and the house was asked to allow Bonavilla to become honorary chair of the RNC. So we told him no, that I didn't have the power. I within the Binga House didn't have the power or the right to do that, because the Nabinga House is just one of the 12 or 13 houses at RNC, and that decision would have to be left up to the member houses, that make up the RNC. Anyway, after that time, we heard that Bonavilla was an honorary chair and started to sign documents and so on you know, to the government.
So to your knowledge, this was not voted on by the other
No,
houses?
no. That was not supported. And an honorary chair does not have that type of authority either to sign documents on behalf of any association, whether it be Rasta or non-Rasta. And if I want to read who an honorary chair is, it is hard to find, you know. But anyway, when the Pinnacle issue came about now, when a court order was given to those who were at Pinnacle. Pinnacle is one of the most outstanding, to I and I, the most outstanding Rastafari community that was established.
The original.
In Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
And that was the base, that was the home of Hough family, and the Houghites. So when the issue came up, that Pinnacle was being developed and was being controlled by certain individuals, we started having dialogue with the government. Then there came a court issue that declared that individuals at Pinnacle would have until a certain time to leave Pinnacle. Now, and I did not consider that right. And the Rastafari Youth Initiative, and this time that I remember, because the Rastafari Youth Initiative was a signatory also to the RNC. Right? So anyway, yeah, the youths now decide that no, they are not going to take that, they are not going to accept that court order, even though none of these youths lived at Pinnacle, but they saw it as a great injustice. So they went up to Pinnacle and established a movement called Occupy Pinnacle.
Right.
This drew international attention to what was happening in Jamaica with Pinnacle issues concerned. There came an email, right, from Maxine Stowe, Greg, the Bonneville, what we consider to be Bonneville faction, calling on the government for the immediate removal of these youths. Now, I within the Rastafari community, we consider that very brazen and very betrayal.
And was it signed in the name of RMC as well as, or just individually by these
No,
people?
it was in the name of the
I see.
RNC, right? So I was one of the first person who called Dr. Mitzi and said to her, so Mitzi, you have to put something out there. She's not the type who wants to put anything out there. She's, you know, she's a decent sister. She don't like the war, the internet war, or the media war, and nothing, you know. But I called on her and I asked her, I said to her that she had to put something out there on the internet, distancing herself from that email, because the moment anybody sees that, they're going to feel, she being the chairperson of the RNC, that she had something to do with that. After a week, consultation, she did respond to it, distancing herself. Then the next thing that came from the same faction, the same Bonneville faction, was that the fact that Dr. Mitzi did not support their call or their request for the government to immediately remove the youth, she had automatically dismissed herself as chair of the RNC. Now these individuals had no right, because they didn't have any voting right, they were not decision makers, they were merely there to work on behalf of the houses and the mansion that make up the RNC. So anyway, we called for a general meeting. So on the 6th of April last year, 2014, we had a meeting. At the meeting, there were all of these individuals, Greg, Kremlin, Maxine Stowe, Bonneville, and others who, were part of them. Now, when the community came out again, then there were also representatives of the houses and mansions that were the original, that were the founding fathers, the founding members of the RNC. They were there. And so the pressure started, the community started to express their anger about the way in which these individuals were administrating the RNC.
Yeah.
So eventually they got up and went away.
So was anything resolved, or how did it ended with them walking out? Is that what you're saying?
They walked up, but the meeting did not end there.
Uh-huh.
A decision was taken by the houses and the mansion that they would give them official letters of dismissal, that they could no longer function or operate on behalf of the RNC.
And that was done?
That was done, I think, either the 9th or the 11th of April, right? Now, on behalf of the RNC, on behalf of the community, an RNC company limited was established to do business on behalf of the community.
Who established that?
The community,
I see.
right? So you had 5 individuals, because it is required by law that at least 5 directors must, you know?
Yes, for a cooperative,
Right.
yes.
So 3 had passed on, which is Hough, Junaman, and the next brother.
Okay, so this was done years ago, and they were now deceased.
Right. So, funny enough now, nobody saw it fit at the time to be discussing these things and saying that there need to be 5 board of directors.
So there were vacancies?
Right.
How many?
3.
3.
Well, at least 3, because the least you can have is 5.
I understand.
But you can have 7, you can have 9.
Correct.
All right. Now, what these, whose name was that was Maxine Stowe and a brother named Rocky. What they did, either on the 11th or the 13th of April, was to go without consulting the community,
Right.
and added 5 more names.
Interesting.
2.
Who did they add?
I know they added a virgin named Iran. I think they added Bonneville, but 5 more names were added. The houses and the mansion, the majority of the houses and the mansion, at least 8 of the houses and the mansion, did not accept that.
And how did they show that they didn't accept it?
Well, in the first place, they were the ones who wrote, right? Those were the ones who wrote.
Wrote the letters of dismissal?
Right.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I have been at reasoning with these individuals. The question was how to counteract what they were doing without taking it into the court.
Right.
Because we knew that this was something for the court. But as Rastafari, and I didn't choose, right? We didn't choose to take it into the court.
You wanted to solve it by
We
negotiation.
were hoping that dialogue,
Yes, exactly.
communication,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Now, there were other attempts to get these individuals into a meeting to sit and to discuss these issues. So that, irrespective of what happened, we could have moved on in oneness. That did not happen. Now, where it's reached at the moment is that these individuals continue to act in the name of the RNC and to give impression as if they are really the representatives of the community. It happened to us that we give thanks that from a government point of view, because we have had meetings with different ministers, the members and the houses of the RNC that were the original founding members, we have met with the government. So the government now has documents in their possession that prove whatever that we are saying, because they have documents in terms of the original signatories of the RNC, and they have copies of the letters of dismissal, and they also have copies of what took place at the registrar of company in terms of illegally putting 5 more names on the board of directors without consulting the community. Now it goes further to the point now that IIV at this moment, along with a company, we have negotiated, or we're about to negotiate a contract or a deal with High Times in order to hold we are having the Rastafari Rootzfest, hope to have that in Negril, and to incorporate the High Times Cannabis Cup, Jamaica Cup and World Cup. That seemed to have the fact that the people are getting to know about that. Now, you have individuals, and there are a lot of things being put out on Bonneville at Facebook in the name, and sometimes you see it as Prophet Greg, sometimes you see it as Bonneville. Now, I personally, I am not a lawyer, but I am not that ignorant of the law. And I know that whenever 2 private companies have a deal, it's up to those companies, legally those 2 companies, or whether chief companies, it is for them to work out whatever they are working with. No set of individuals outside, right, doesn't have the right to try and intervene.
And have these people tried to intervene?
Yes.
In what way?
They have email communication, more than one communication to High Times magazine. They have even brought in, whether it's a contracted lawyer, but lawyers have, letters, communication are being sent out from the lawyer on behalf of these individuals who continue to parade in the name of the RNC. And
what is their claim? What are they complaining about?
And I give thanks to ask that question, and friend. I really give thanks to ask that question, because the vast majority of the Rastafari community does not support what Maxine Stowe, Bonneville, Greg, they are doing. The vast majority, I'm not saying the vast majority, I'm talking about 90%, right? What they are trying to do is to control Rastafari IP. That is, whatever is out there in terms of royalties, intellectual property that belong to the Rastafari community, they are trying to claim that. They are trying to say that if one does not deal with them, then it's as if they don't have the right to use the name Rastafari and so on.
So help me to understand, the original concept of this democratically constituted organization, the RMC, was somehow to protect IP.
Right.
But what is the difference between their claim of protection and the original intention of protection?
The difference is, Fern, that they cannot and no longer have the right to act on behalf of the community.
So I understand that first of all you're saying they are not the democratically elected representatives. In fact, they've been dismissed. So that's one issue that I think is fairly clear. But if we just took the IP issue itself separately, if the RMC were headed by people you would all consider to be democratically elected representatives, should they be the ones to control private use of your event, say?
No, not even the RNC, right?
That's what I'm trying to
acting
understand.
legally,
Right.
would have the right to intervene, right?
And they should not have the right morally because?
Because one, according to the law, right, any individual Rastafari,
Right.
any group of Rastafari, legally, whether individual or collective, have the right to have a ganja event.
Yes.
Right? Whether as individual, as set of individuals, or in association with a non-Rastafari entity.
Yes.
Right? So that is law.
Yes, that's the statute which permits any Rastafari to
Right.
have an event.
Right.
Apply for permission to have an
Right.
event.
So it is up to the promoters then of that event, if
Right.
they so choose
Yes,
to contribute to the Rastafari community.
right.
Right? I would encourage any promoter that is going to go out there and function or keep an event in the name of Rastafari to find some way to contribute to the community. Not that they have to, because legally they don't have to.
Right.
This is just looking at things from a moral point of view.
Exactly.
But
that's what I'm asking
legally,
you. Right,
legally, they don't have an obligation, right,
right.
to contribute anything to the Rastafari community.
So you would say that the RMC, however it be constituted, does not have the right to tell an individual Rastafari person that he can't self-identify as such and make a contract as Rastafari and apply for an event permission,
No,
or permission to grow, or whatever permission you might want.
right.
And-
The RMC would not have that right.
Would not, if democratically constituted, even want that right. That was not what they were set up to accomplish.
No, not to intervene in legal procedures, right? Whether is an individual Rasta person or a group of Rastafari, right?
Right.
Because I, for example, I'm in the movement for 40 odd years, long before some of those individuals who claiming that they are this and they are that in Rastafari.
Right.
Now, I personally, and who we as Rastafari, that were the original signatories of the RMC,
Right.
I and I still meet. You know, no matter that from last year, we have met. We meet every week, even if I am not at those meetings.
I see.
But the houses and the mansion still meet every week, reason, discuss what is to be discussed, and so on. So, there is proof, a lot of proof, that all of the houses, I am the majority of the houses that makes up out of the original signatories of the RMC. I and the brethren and sisters have a very, very, very good relationship, right? And you might have seen that at some time with the representatives of the houses and mansion coming to whatever event.
Absolutely.
We sit, we discuss. At the moment, we are discussing benefit sharing from this event coming up, right? Because
You intend to share the benefit of the profits that you
right. I, as a Rasta man, I could never have an event whether as an individual or as a part of a group having a function like Rastafari, like Rootzfest, without taking into consideration, benefit sharing with the Rastafari community. As a matter of fact, I have gone as far as getting representatives of the houses and the mansion to be a part of an advisory board to I within what is known as RRI, Rastafari in INIT, which is a company that is negotiating with High Time to keep this event.
So you will ask their advice on issues having to do with this event and consult with them. That sounds like...
Right, especially with the seminars
Yeah.
and the benefit sharing aspect is
yes.
concerned.
Well, that sounds wonderful.
Right?
Yeah.
And they want to be a part of what is going on because they want to ensure that come November, whatever takes place is in the best interest of the Rastafari community.
Right.
So the proof is there that we are still together as a community, but the individuals, because I'm in this firm long enough to know who is who. Right? I am in this long enough to know is very few individuals in this movement today that have been in it longer than I.
Right.
Because most of my elders, ones who I came and saw in this movement, have passed on. Right? I became a part of the movement as a teenager. Right? I am now 60 odd. Right? So my age group now have become the elders of the movement. Not that there are not older people than I, but there are very few. So my generation has become the elders of the movement. So I know who is who. I know who really want progress. I know who want unity. I know who want to control what is Rastafari for themselves. Right? So, not just I, but I and I who have been in the movement for these past years, who have been together for the past 40 and 30 odd years, planning events, planning marches, planning demonstration, and I know who is who. So the few individuals who we realize their intention is to undermine the development and the well-being and the prosperity of the Rastafari, and I choose not to have anything to do with these individuals first, and continue to do what I and I know is in the best interest of the movement.
Well, thank you. That's very illuminating. I want to just ask if anybody has any question that I should have asked and could now ask. Yes.
Why haven't you answered or provided a response to Tony Wheeler and Maxine Stowe?
Who hasn't?
Ras Iyah.
Why haven't I?
Yeah.
Do I?
So,
Responded.
in other words, responded to the latest barrage of emails?
Yes. Not even
But
the
that would-
latest, but from the whole.
Well, I understood you to say the response was letters of dismissal.
No, I mean, I think she's
The
done
person.
Oh, so you've been
it-
attacked personally by
Yes.
these individuals. What,
How do I respond?
have you responded to them, and if not, why not?
No, I've never responded because one thing, Fern, I want to know how long these individuals are going to continue these attacks. So we don't pay them any mind, right? I've never responded to any of them. And the good thing, Fern, is that when you go to the different ministries and talk with the different ministers, you see how many emails these individuals have sent to these ministers
Right,
and other people.
yeah.
You ask the ministers, have they ever seen any email sent out by I and I? Whether I as an individual or my brethren and sisters who are the founding members of the RNC, they will tell you no. They have never seen an email coming from us trying to malign or discredit any individual. Right? So that much is there to show who is trying to destroy who. And in terms of defamation, because it is out there, I am not saying that the day might not come, that I might have to resort to the law, because my personality, my character is continuously being attacked and being defamed out there. The great possibility is that one day I will have to take it to the court. So far I have not responded simply because I know that sometimes when you keep responding, it's as if you're giving life. Right? You're giving life to the dead.
Okay,
Right? So
Alright.
sometimes it's best not to respond.
okay, I agree. But I do want to ask you one other question, and I think it's the toughest one. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that Maxine Stowe has a good point. And her point that I might consider to be a valid theoretical point is that Rastafari have tremendous cultural heritage that you could capitalize on potentially, that it's an extremely ecumenical, appealing, moral movement that has a tremendous amount of life and vitality in it and is attractive to people around the world. Her point that I think was the original RMC point, that there's an intellectual property right that might be monetized based on that. Her point might be, let's not piss it away in dribs and drabs. Let's make sure we operate together so that we maximize the value for the entire community of that attractive cultural capital that we have. I'm not saying that I agree with the way she's gone about trying to assert this point, but I wonder how you would answer, in a world in which now there may be ways to have events and to make a little money from this, how you would say the community should act. How should the community deal with individuals who seek to have an event and seek to make a profit? Are they spending the capital? And if they aren't spending the capital, should there be some community decision as to whether they're spending it in good ways or not?
Well, one, legally, Maxine Stowe, and who she had a little part of her, what we would call crew or sector, they as individuals do not have the right to make that claim on behalf of the community.
That I understand your
Right.
argument perfectly.
Right.
But should the community have that right to make it?
No, that the community legally, the RNC legally was set up to make that claim, to protect our intellectual property out there, right? There's no question about that. Now, when it comes to a Rastafari individual
Yeah,
or a Rastafari group,
yes.
take for example, you have our Rastafari indigenous village also a signatory.
Yeah.
But take for example, you have a Rastafari indigenous village would want to have an event, right? The Rastafari community, even as the RNC, would not and could not have the legal right to demand of the Rastafari indigenous village.
So I think I understand what you're saying, which is that it protects it against fraudulent
Exploitation.
outsiders
Right.
using the Rastafari
Right.
name, taking it in vain, as it
Right,
were,
right.
and capitalizing
Right,
on it.
exploiting it and
Exactly.
misusing
Whereas it permits freedom of use for genuine Rastafari.
Exactly.
Now I understand.
Exactly.
Good.
But it will be up to that group,
Yes.
right? If
Decide
they see it
who's
fit
valid or not.
to contribute to the wider community.
Yes.
But the wider community
Right.
would not have the right to impose,
It makes complete sense.
right?
Yes.
Because any other group within the community would have that same right to do an event to make money,
Yes, I see.
right?
Yes.
So the RNC, even as a collective,
So nobody in the RMC, as a collective, could ring up Bunny Whaler and say, you just gave a concert, you need to give us the money, could they?
no,
He's completely free,
no.
as a Rasta man,
Right.
to have a concert and to
Right.
earn his money,
Just as he does not have any right either,
to do the reverse to you.
right? Nor to any individual,
I
nor to
understand.
any group.
That's
Right.
plain as day.
Right, but again, the aim and objective of the RNC, yes, what is there, it was set up to protect our intellectual property, but it does not have the right to impose on any Rastafari group or any Rastafari individual.
Thank you, that is very clear.
This that's right.
All right, anybody else? Anything else?
Okay,
Yes,
quick
Blaine.
Okay, so in light of everything that's transpired and gone on, and where we are now, is there anything you would want to say to Bunny or Maxine Stowe? at this
Excellent question. Yes, if you could sit and reason
Honestly speaking, Fern and Blaine, I said this morning, if you play a hardball game with me, I'll play it back with you. So if you feel like tough, I'll show you that I'm tougher, right? So if it's war, it's war, right? Because I know personally, you know, I am not the aggressor. But at the same time, if I were to say anything to Bonneville, not to Maxine Stowe, because I don't share as Rasta, she had said more than one occasion, she's not Rasta. At the time when the RNC came about, she just had a big head of soul, right? And yeah, I mean, she was not even dreadlocked, you know? So I wouldn't have anything to say with her. Now, Bonnie is somebody that I have known for a long time.
Yeah.
And there were times when I could have gone to Bonneville and said, look here, what are we doing an event, want some support. And he would have supported it.
Mm-hmm.
He would have supported it. I know in 1992 when we had the centenary motorcade of His Majesty, Bonneville have supported it. When we had the first ganja march in Jamaica, we stayed at Bonneville at home and planned that march. Right? But so what I would say to him now is that the bridging, the art to be acting in a more mature and responsible manner. That's all I would have said to him. Right?
Okay.
You cannot claim that you want unity and at the same time you're the one who is out there or a part of a group that is bent and defaming the character of individuals and to try to discredit individual or group work. You cannot be doing that. You know what I mean? You're contradicting your own self. At one moment you're saying unity, but at the next moment you're having a meeting out there and you're attacking members of the community. You cannot do that. You know? Plus you're attacking these individuals without anything to substantiate why you morally or legally attacking these individuals. You know, and there are a lot more things that I could have said first, but you know, people will eventually know who is who and what is what within the Rastafari community.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Give
I've
thanks.
learned a lot.
Yeah, give thanks for that.
Okay.
Yeah, give thanks.